Good evening, everybody. Welcome out tonight to tonight's Thursday night webinar. This is a free webinar for anybody that wants to attend, and so we're happy to have you with us. This might be your first experience with us.
Yeah, absolutely. We try to do these about once a month, where we put on one of these workshops just to introduce people to tax lien and deed investing, teach them a little bit about it, each month.
Yeah. So we cover different topics, but one of the nice things about this format is that you're free to ask questions throughout the event, and we can wait and answer at different points, and so you're welcome to get as engaged or as involved as you want.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely appreciate you taking the time to come out and attend tonight's training. Tonight we're going to be talking about buying tax deed homes through tax deed foreclosures.
Yeah. So we're going to dig into this topic a little bit because it's something that a lot of people are after, but I think there's also a lot of I don't know, probably a lot of ideas out there. People probably wonder about how well it works, and it'd be a fun topic here to talk about.
Yeah, and also last month at the last training we went over how to buy tax deed land and what are the advantages of land. And so to kind of hit the other side of that coin, we wanted to talk about homes and structured properties and what you need to watch out for and some of the steps that you're going to need to go through to purchase tax deed structured properties.
Yeah. Now, if you are new to us, then just kind of a real quick overview of who we are. We're cousins. We basically grew up around each other and had our first real interaction, I guess, or contact with tax liens and deeds about a little more than 20 years ago.
Yeah. I was a real estate agent at the time, and me and Shade were both interested in real estate. And my broker invited me to come out to the tax deed auction. And so that was kind of our first experience with tax sales at all.
Yeah, which it was an interesting time too to get involved because it was right as the internet was changing how how you could locate and perform research on properties. Up to that point, we pretty much had to do everything in person, and so it was an interesting time to get involved in that way. Although we didn't really find a lot of answers in training, ultimately we ended up needing to just kind of attend auctions and start trying to break down individual states and their laws to figure out how it worked.
Yeah, we spent the next 7 or 8 years learning everything we could from every resource we could find about tax sale investing, and we started attending auctions and figuring out how states work, and eventually in around 2006 we started writing our home study program, and we actually ended up working directly with the seminar companies for many years, and we provided them our trainings and our programs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, good. Sounds like this sound's working here. Okay. All right. Good. Just worried that was something that maybe people couldn't hear us, but I think everybody can actually hear us here. And so, anyhow, we, sorry, I wasn't even listening. Did you say we were talking? You get to the seminar companies yet?
Yeah. I was just talking about how we'd worked with the seminar companies, and so during that time, our programs, we were really kind of the behind the scenes guys. We would private label our programs and teach their students, and it didn't really give us a whole lot of control other than teaching the students that we received.
Yeah, it was a way to reach a lot of people, but I think that we also found things that we didn't really like about about that side of it, and really one of the things was just how it was kind of a sales effort, primarily, and not so much focused on what the results were, and that was always more important to us. And so when we got the chance to kind of break away from the seminar companies, we did so, because we always knew we could provide the training directly to people for a lot better prices.
Yeah. What we did is we took the program that they were selling in fancy books and CDs and just put it online. And so instead of charging people $2,000 to $3,000, we just had a monthly fee you could cancel at any time, and that's really how tax sale support was established.
Yeah, which it's gone incredibly well since then, and we've not only do we have a lot of members that we work with, but we've actually had people we work with closely that are buying and selling property constantly. It's great.
Yeah, in fact, we'll actually look at a few different examples of some student deals this evening. So when in getting started with structured properties, whether that be homes, commercial properties, some type of apartment or duplex, there's three things that we're going to consider or look at, whether that in first getting started.
Yeah, in fact, especially if we're looking to buy any kind of a home or structured property, then really these things are probably listed in order of priority too, in terms of what we look for first, because the condition is a pretty big factor.
Yeah, absolutely. And then from there, we're going to check out the market value, and also check for potential risk. And we'll see some of those risks throughout the entire process, but that's where we're going to go do some final due diligence to make sure there's not anything like governmental liens that could affect us in the long run.
Yeah, there are certain things that we can determine about the property from just using things like county records and maps and stuff like that. But there's some information that we can't really determine about a property without either being there in person or having somebody else there in person that can take pictures for us.
Yeah, absolutely. If we're buying property, we're either going to go out there and look at a structured property ourselves, or we're going to make sure that we have current photos. It's just too risky to rely on online information that could be, years old.
Well, it's rarely going to be really accurate, for what the current condition is, and that doesn't even account for things that can happen overnight, like having it burned down.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen that before. Here's an example of a property that we were looking at, the online evaluation. You can see there, the property looks pretty good. Somebody's living on the property. It's boarded up. I mean, it's livable. And then we look at the actual on-site evaluation that was taken 2 years later. So we looked at this property online. We thought it looked good. Then we actually sent somebody out there to view the property. And you can see that the property is in pretty rough shape. In fact, the front window is broken open. There's a hole in the roof. You can see within 2 years of time, the property's really gone downhill.
Yeah. Well, and it's in good shape compared to some properties too, because you never know exactly what, has happened with a property that ends up on a tax sale list. And so there are a couple of different ways that we can get an on-site evaluation performed. If we can do it ourselves, or if we can find somebody if we know somebody that lives in the area, that's always, in fact, one way that we can decide which areas we invest in, is if we know somebody or if we have a contact. But there's other ways if we don't know somebody there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Shade said, if we have the option ourselves, we're always going to do that. If not, we're going to look at friends and family that may live in the area. In fact, some of the students that we work with on the coaching level may look at properties where they have friends and family that can go out there and look at the properties for them. And so that's always a good option, but that's not always the case, especially if you're doing online investing throughout the country.
Yeah, well, and oftentimes you're going to pay them either way, even if they are family or friends. And so, a lot of times paying somebody, isn't, it's going to be in the cards anyway. And so there's other options, that you can have. One option would be something like a handyman, which can have certain benefits associated with it. At least hopefully they would be more familiar with condition of property and what might be needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, in addition to not only being able to give you some insight, hey, the roof looks pretty bad, or I see this, from my view that I, see, they can also be a resource for you if you do end up getting the property. They can go out there and secure the property for you, clean it up, do repairs, things like that. And so that is one advantage of a handyman. And that's something that when we're contacting handyman, we'll let them know, hey, if we win this property, we're going to need you to do some work. And that also gives them a little bit more motivation to go out there and take some good photos.
Yeah, another option if we want to try it for less cost is just to hire from the classifieds, or to post a classified ad there, looking for somebody that would take some pictures. And this can be a way of reducing the overall cost. You can basically get an idea of how much it's going to cost to look at several properties, and pay somebody to look at several. Because if you're going to have somebody out to do it, you want to have them look at more than just one.
Yeah. Well, in this type of case, we've had people do it for as little as 30 to 50 bucks, to go out and look at some different properties for you, send you the photos, and let you do the evaluation. The another option is a real estate agent. Now, the one drawback of the real estate agent is most agents aren't just going to go out there and look at property that you don't own, property that you may potentially buy, because they really work on commissions, and so they work on listing property. But if you do have an agent that works with you, or that does real estate for you, that may be an option. But also there's some agents that will do what's called a BPO, and that's called it means a broker price opinion, which is kind of like a little bit of a mini appraisal, where they'll go out and view the property, take some photos for it. And so that could be an option through a realtor.
Yeah.
Here are just a couple of properties that these were actually properties that were purchased by us, to kind of give you some examples. We're going to show you a few different examples throughout tonight, but these were purchased in Florida. You can see one property, the top property on the top was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. We ended up winning this property at 10,000, had a value of 52,000, and we actually just ended up flipping this property. There was somebody actually living in it that had been renting it for a long time, and so we ended up selling to them for I think 20,000, and just did a quick flip on it. The property below that is actually a property that's still being rented out to this day, and this was a property that 3-bedroom, 1-bath, which was purchased at a pretty good price with a pretty good value.
Yeah, about 20 cents on the dollar. And one of the things that you'll find about investing your money is it's really about how much bang you can get for your buck in terms of where exactly you should invest. For a lot of you, if you're looking to invest in different places, a question to kind of ask yourself is, how far will $50,000 get you, in your area, or whether maybe it's $100,000 or whatever that amount is that you're working with, and you compare how far that'll take in your area versus in a lot of other areas where it might go a lot further in terms of getting an actual house, something people can live in and that you could make rental income from.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. In fact, we were talking with one of our new coaching students yesterday, and she lives within the San Francisco area. And so if you know much about San Francisco real estate, it's pretty high end there, one of the most expensive places in the country. And so even the tax sale auctions are competitive. And so, if you were to have, let's say 20 grand, you really can't do a whole lot with 20 grand or 30 grand in a market like that. Well, 20 or 30 grand, you might be able to do pretty well in some other markets where that money's going to go a lot further.
Yeah. And, because one of the things you'll also find is that, you can collect just as much monthly rent off of a home that's valued at 50,000 as you can off of a home that's valued at 150,000.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you could take, 150,000 and put it into 3 homes that are valued at 50 or 60,000, and each one of those, even if maybe the home that's worth 150,000 rents out for 1,200, you're getting 900 or 1,000 out of the ones that are worth 60,000.
Yeah.
So it's it's so minimal. You'll actually make 2 to 3, almost 3 times more money looking at different markets where you can really spread that out.
A certain aspect of determining the condition is going to be based on guesswork. It really is. Even with photos and things like that you can do to give yourself more information, it's still at the end of the day, it's kind of a guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, biggest thing about tax sale properties is we can't go in the properties. You're not going to be able to walk through the properties. You're not going to be able to send your inspector over. We can really only judge the book by its cover. So we've got to judge the outside to kind of determine what that inside may look like. And so that's the reason why, we're really going to find out what the market value is of the property so that we can make we can choose the proper bid amount and how much we're going to willing to pay for it.
Yeah, we're also going to aim really low in all of our value assessments, meaning that we're going to try to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt and undervalue the property, if anything, so that it gives us additional cushion or safety, from making mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing that real estate agents do. We're going to do a comparative market analysis on the property. we're going to find what we call comps or comparables, homes that are similar, very similar for sale within the same area, neighborhood, that have sold or are currently for sale, that we're going to use to help compare to see what our property value is worth.
Yeah, and really what we're looking for here is for properties that are as close to, to the property that we're buying as we can find within the same geographical area, and hopefully, within a set time period as well. And so that could be things that have sold, but also maybe things that are listed for sale.
Well, if the home that you're comparing to, let's say that we're looking at a home that needs quite a bit of work, we're not going to use brand new, rehabs that are completely redone as our comparable. We're going to try to find homes that have sold that are comparable, that need some work, that need some things done to them, to say these really are the comparables. Because if you were to use those ones that had already rehabbed as your comparables, you could easily end up overpaying it. And then when you do get inside the property, oh, well, it needs this, it needs that. And then suddenly you've lost money on the deals.
Yeah, you basically, because you overestimated, the value of the property, you can end up paying too much for it as a result. So there's a couple different ways that we can find. Let me back that up here for a second. When it comes to comps, what we're really looking for is the fastest way that we can do it. It's not really about being so precise because really what we're trying to do is get a rough idea, but we're trying to limit how much time we spend doing it. So we might look at property value websites, or we might look at county records online, depending on how easy the county records are to use.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to use any type of resource we can to find good comparables. So as far as the property value websites, we just put 2 down here. There's probably a dozen. If you like some better than others, that you can find good comparables of sold and for sale property, go ahead and use it. It doesn't matter if you have access to the MLS or anything like that. Those are going to be great resources. But Zillow and Realtor can find you, quite a few properties that have sold, properties that are currently for sale, that you can use as good comparables on those properties. And so, what we'll do is we'll go see properties that have sold. We'll look for properties that are currently for sale, and really try to find some good comparables that we can use to evaluate our property.
A lot of times, if we're working with county records anyway, because we're pulling up property record information, the county sales record may be right there at our fingertips anyway within the county property record system. So if that's the case, then it may have the most complete record, and it may be an easy way to find that information quickly. Again, it's really about the time. We're trying to find some examples there without spending a ton of time doing it.
Yeah, it makes a good point. Here are a couple of other member deals which our coaching students have done recently.
Yeah. In fact, and you can see that with these, you've got homes. I think these were both bought. These were over the counter at some point. They were essentially bought though from an auction.
Yeah, these were in the Michigan in what's called a resale. And so after the auction has taken place, they'll take all of the properties that haven't sold and they'll have a resale. And you can see that, with each one of these properties, there's plenty of good profit margin within the property that makes the deal worth it.
Well, what we're normally looking at with properties is we're aiming to try to come in and to acquire properties for about 10% of value or less. That's our target amount that we're looking for, so generally, if we stick to that amount too, it's hard to go wrong with a deal. It's hard to have something go so wrong that it can't be profitable.
Yeah. And when it comes to these structured properties, the condition is going to be so important. You could easily make a mistake. That's part of the reason when we start out investing in deeds, we have them invest in land first, because you're less likely to make a mistake than you are. I mean, even one of the properties that we had there in Florida that we showed you earlier, it was a good thing that we got the property for around 20 cents on the dollar, because if we didn't, once we got into it, we found out that it needed termites, and so that was $1,500 or $2,000. And then there was some sheetrock work and some issues in the ceiling which cost another $1,000. And so You know, those things can add up where,
Yeah, 10,000 can go up really fast. You
yeah,
know, it can
especially
disappear.
if you're looking at these lower type homes that are 50 to 60,000.
Hmm.
And when you're looking at tax foreclosures, you've got to think these properties were lost for back taxes. So it could be somebody who passed away. It could be a second home or something like that. You know, there's lots of different reasons why, but there's also going to be all those homes that were completely neglected and have been let go and look something like this home right here.
Yeah, yeah, we don't really know what the circumstances are a lot of times behind these properties, but they're not traditional circumstances. And a lot of times these properties have just been neglected. And so what we're trying to avoid are problem properties. And what we would define as problem properties, we're going to be looking for potential risks and what those potential risks can really be are either it's going to come down to either government liens or properties that are condemned or tear downs or basically major rehabs.
Yeah, exactly. You know, any of these can affect the property. Now, the bottom two, we're going to completely avoid. The
Yeah,
first one, governmental liens, that's one that we're going to find out how much that lien is, because maybe it's a $200 grass cut lien because they had to send a city out there to cut the grass. Well, in that scenario, if we're buying a home that we're paying 10 grand for, an extra 200 bucks isn't going to kill the deal.
yeah. In fact, as long as we know about it, it's not an issue because we can account for it. What we want to try to avoid is buying something to find out it has a government issued lien against it, you know, and trying to find out how much that's for, because whatever it is, we're kind of hostage to it at that point.
Yeah, well, if you're looking at one of these homes, let's say these lower priced homes that are like the 60 to 80,000, and suddenly there's some type of $20,000 violation
Yeah, it
or
changes
something
the
like
numbers
that,
dramatically.
you know, suddenly you could be upside down and losing money on those deals. And so that's the reason it's so important to go in and do your research, make sure that you've determined the value, you've checked for these governmental liens before you buy something like this. You know, about every year we'll end up getting call from somebody that found us online for the first time, panicking because they attended some seminar or they heard about tax sale investing and went out there to the auction and bought something.
Blue 50,000.
Yeah, sight unseen, to find out that, you know, you're buying a house that had burnt down,
Yeah.
you know, previously.
Or an easement property.
Yeah, or a property which, you know, has no value whatsoever because it can only be used for a you know, electric tower or something like that, or a water tower. You know, those are the type of things that you can do if you don't do the proper due diligence.
Yeah, when it comes to finding government liens, we can find those. I mean, there's a couple different ways we can do that. We can either have, you know, of course, a title company, you know, would be able to find that stuff if you were to hire out for a title search, but we can also do some title research on our own and usually identify or find them. You know, it kind of depends on what kinds of records we have available, but if we can have access to the right records, we can usually find it.
Yeah, in fact, it's something we teach our membership about, which we call investor title search, where we go in and research the records to see if there's any type of governmental liens that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, because they're going to show up as court actions. You know, they're going to be motions within the court, and we'll be able to find and track those based on names.
Yeah, you know, this one here is another major risk. In fact, this one's even more scary than the governmental liens, because the governmental liens probably in most areas could sit there long enough and eventually fall off.
Yeah.
You know, with something like a condemned property, this suddenly, you know, now you're on the hook for, you know, no longer is this an asset. This is a serious liability, because if it needs to be condemned, if it needs to be torn down, you are now the owner. You're responsible for that.
Yeah, you don't want any part in the property that, you know, that is in the process of being condemned, because really you're somebody's already walked away from the property at that point, you know.
Yeah.
And what needs to happen is the property needs to be torn down and cleared, and then, you know, the county can work on selling it. So you're stepping in at kind of the wrong point there. You know, you don't want to be the person to buy it, you know, when it's condemned.
Well, and if, let's say it was an 800 square foot home in you know, Santa Cruz, California, you know, well, you know, that property value has enough value that, hey, it could be worth taking off and demolishing that home and using the land because the land has so much value. But now, on the other hand, if the house is worth 50,000 and the land's worth 7,000, and it costs you 15,000 to clear the property, now you're into this property, thousands and thousands of dollars more than it's worth.
Yeah. Yeah, this is another example here, another member deal we have here. The winning bid on the property was what, about $10,000, sorry, let me go back there, and it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
Yeah, nice potential profit there, clean property. We'll need some type of rehab work, some things, but overall isn't going to need any type of major rehab. So this could be an easy, profitable deal.
Yeah, well, really, even if you put anywhere up to 10,000 into the property, it's still going to be a profitable deal and would be a great property.
Yeah, well, and some auctions are going to have a lot more competition than other auctions, and so you may, like for example in Florida, we bidded at several auctions. We would probably only win one property every 2 auctions that we bid on. We probably bid on 10 or 12 properties because we wanted to get them at the right price.
Yeah, which in order to do that, you're going to have to walk away from a lot of deals, and you're going to have to be willing to do that because it's what it takes to get them at the right price.
Yeah, we the pain of walking away from a deal hurts, but not like the pain of losing thousands and thousands of dollars by doing the wrong type of deal. So as far as properties we want to target, any type of single family homes, condos, mobile homes, really anything that has some type of structure on the property, whether that's commercial property or residential property.
Yeah, and hey, Brian, if you like the Santa Cruz, we're actually, I think we're going to look at a property in Santa Cruz. In fact, we're kind of going through some of this stuff somewhat fast because we want to jump over and show you guys some neat properties and some things that are going on.
Yeah, in fact, we're kind of trying to go through an hour worth of training as little as we can so that we can spend some actual time going and looking at upcoming auctions and upcoming deeds.
Yeah. So, but really, when it comes to what we want to target with structures, anything that's usable, livable, is an option there for us. That's ultimately what we're looking for, though, is that ability for it to be used, and for somebody to use it to live in.
Yeah. Now, as far as property to avoid, it really just takes a bit of common sense. Condemn major rehabs, large governmental liens.
Yeah. If we find environmental issues. If we look if the property is boarded up and you look around and there's other properties that are boarded up on the same street, then we're going to probably avoid it. We don't mind buying the stinker, in the neighborhood, but we don't want every other house to be a stinker.
Yeah. If every house if most of the houses in the neighborhood are boarded up, which you can see in certain type of neighborhoods where you'll find some of these tax sale properties, it's going to be better to avoid that. If a home is clean enough, even if it's a little bit rougher area or maybe an area we wouldn't live, but still has a clean property, good value, then it could be worth buying. But there's some of these areas where you're just buying a pit on a street full of money pits.
Yeah, also the oversaturated market is one that would be easy to overlook, but in reality is an important one because we check that prior to any kind of property we purchase. We want to see what's for sale in the area and what the market's been doing, because if we don't check that, it's really easy to buy property in an area that has problems.
Yeah, well, and really that's going to come down to the price as well. So if we got a clean enough property, even in an oversaturated market, we could drop the price well enough to be able to get it sold. But what if it's an oversaturated market and you've got to put 15 grand into rehab?
Yeah.
If you could just sell it quickly, sell it for low, and you got it for cheap enough, then it could be something to look at. But Shay makes a good point, because if that's not the case, then you could really be in some trouble.
Yeah, looks like we got a couple of other member deals here on some homes that they picked up.
Yeah, the one on the left, they were able to pick up that property for around $13,000. At the time, it was worth $50,000. This one's actually a couple of years old, and so it's actually gone up quite a bit since then, because it's been worth $110,000. They got it kind of right as the market had peaked down there in that particular area. And then the one on the right, they picked up for $8,500, which is a really nice home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as far as any type of extra cost in evaluating the deal, there's some things that we need to take into account when we're buying structured property.
Yeah, well, basically what we want to be aware of is any kind of ongoing expense or holding fee, that is going to cost us, so that we can account for it. And so some of those things are going to include not just the rehab cost, but also the cost of pursuing quiet title, which is going to be different in each area. But we're going to have to basically locate a local real estate attorney that can help us through that process.
Yeah, Shade's exactly right. I mean, when we get these properties, we don't have time to go through and explain the whole quiet title process, but when we get them, we get it as a tax deed, and we need to turn them into a warranty deed, and that's what quiet title is. And so there's going to be costs there. There's going to be future property taxes. Let's say if it's going to take us 3 to 6 months to rehab, plus we're going to need, another 3 to 6 months to sell it. So we're going to need to pay 6 months to a year's worth of property taxes.
Yeah, we're going to get insurance on it, as soon as we pick it up as well. Because now we wouldn't necessarily. We can get insurance on any piece of property, but it's especially important on an improved property, to get insurance, because we have the potential there to lose the value.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to buy it and then have something happen and it gets burnt down and we've just lost all of our money. So that's going to be an expense there, and even getting into the property, when we buy tax deed properties, don't expect to get keys. That could maybe happen in a few situations, but we're going to need a locksmith to get into the property for us, to change the locks. Those are all going to be in costs that we're going to need to consider.
That's also going to be including the ongoing property taxes. I don't know if we mentioned that or not, but property taxes are a big one. That can be a big motivation for whether or not you feel like you've got to get rid of a property, or whether you feel like you can sit back and hold it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So once we've determined the property value, that's when we're going to determine our high bid amount. And one thing that we always stress is we stick to that high bid amount. If you go above that, and it's so tempting to go above, that when you see properties you're losing, but that's really where you can make a mistake.
Yeah. Now, before we jump over and start looking at some properties here, if you are interested in the membership program there, this is what you can sign up for. It's $39 a month unless you buy the year up front, which you can do it for $29 a month. But essentially, we provide tax sale lists, hundreds of them every single month for auctions, also over-the-counter lists, live training. Really, there's quite a bit of content that goes into that. I think it's more than most people realize.
Yeah, it's definitely the best value for tax sale education. In fact, we'll go on to tax sale support now and start looking at some upcoming auctions and properties, and look at some upcoming structures and kind of do a quick evaluation on them with you.
All right, so let's do this here. Okay. Let's see here. Here's a great question here. Do tax sales happen year round, or is it limited to certain time frames? That's actually a really good question, because it's one that varies, depending on areas. So in many places, tax sales are just an annual thing. Like, for instance, a lot of places that sell tax liens may just do annual sales, but that's not always the case.
Yeah, it's going to be completely based on the state. So within our membership program, we break down each state and kind of explain how that works. And so you can go there and review the state, but some states will have it every single month is almost kind of a mandate if they have the property available. For example, like Texas and in Georgia. There's other states like Florida that do tax deed foreclosures, and it's going to be on needed. So there's counties in Florida that have auctions 3 times a month, tax deed auctions, or they may have it once a month, or maybe they only need it 4 times a year. Or there's other states like here in Utah, California, where they really generally have one sale. Now California is a little bit different because they will do a resale, so properties they don't sell at the first auction, they'll go ahead and re-auction again. But it's going to be completely dependent on state law.
Okay, let's see here. And let me see here, the next question here is, what do you consider a major rehab, and what is the max price cap for it? So I think if we're looking at major rehab, we don't really want to have to. At least it depends on what the value of the property is.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem is that it can really depend. It can really vary depending on the property location. For example, if we're looking at a property that has $300,000 worth of value, then spending $100,000 in major rehab, if you were able to get it for cheap enough,
Yeah, would make sense.
Could make sense, because you could still make close to $150,000-$60,000 on the deal.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, there are houses that we wouldn't want to have to sink 20,000 into because
it's worth
because it's going to be worth 40 or 50,000 no matter how much we put into it.
Yeah, you paid, let's say, and it's worth 50,000. You end up buying it for 15 and put another 25,000 or even 20,000 into it. Where you need to consider all of the rehab costs in addition to the going through quiet title. And so that's where it can kind of depend on how much that property is valued to determine what that cap rate or how high we're going to go on it.
Yeah. Now let's see here. Another one here is how do you find out about the government liens without opening the title? And the answer to that is we can actually determine that when we pull up property records and we can see exact names of who the owners are of the property. What we can do is we can use that owner name and search throughout the counties or the area's legal records for things that match up to that name. And a lot of times we can find and identify liens that have been placed against properties that way. If we can match up that person's name along with property addresses, we can find things like liens.
Yeah. In fact, really what we're doing is we're researching court records. It's actually a training we teach our membership program in one of our weekly webinars, is how to be able to do this. How do you go into the court records, whether that be through the recorder's office or the court office, and research those property owners to see which liens are attached or which judgments or anything. Really, you can research quite a bit of information on a property through some counties. Now, not all counties are going to have that. So if there is a risk, that's where we're going to try to get a lien search done through a title company. It's cheaper than a title search. That way we can see what the government liens are.
Yeah, I think the last question on that was, do you use law firms or title company to convert a tax deed to a warranty deed?
That's usually going to be a law attorney or some type of attorney's office. Title companies usually aren't, at least from my experience. There's some, tax title services.
Yeah, there's a few of them, that deal specifically with like tax foreclosures, and those companies, tax title services, is one of them. But there's just not that many title services that are, that deal with tax deeds. So really normally we've got to get it fixed before we. Now, once you get it fixed, and once you have a real estate attorney take it through quiet title, then you can go through any. You can go through any title company, but to get that fixed though is something you're gonna have to hire a local attorney to do.
Yeah, exactly. So should we look at some property quick?
Yeah. Let's
go ahead and since we talked about Santa Cruz, let's look at the Santa Cruz cell.
Yeah.
I think you can click on it right there.
Now look, a lot of these, I saw. Brian mentioned earlier that a lot of them redeem, and that's something that could be happening. There's actually a strategy that you can utilize, investing to nag some of those properties there and become, that's probably part of what's happening as to why why nearly all of them do end up redeeming.
Yeah.
It's because of pre-foreclosure.
And also, people don't want to lose their property. So if it is owner occupied, if it's something, even if it's not owner occupied, if there's somebody that has an interest, they'll usually try to make every effort to go ahead and pay those off. But that doesn't mean that there's not going to, be good properties that don't get paid off and redeemed. Let's look at that real quick so I can remember which ones. Batch 1 is 356. That one right there.
Let's take a look here. Now, yeah, I think in a place like California, we may have to bid up a lot higher percentage in order to try to win the property. But at the same time, though, the increased value should make for more potential profitability. So in other words, if we were to pay 50% or something, it might still make sense because the numbers would still work.
Yeah, yeah. In some areas, we want to buy houses for under 20% to be profitable, but in an area like Southern California or parts of Northern California, the property values are so high, you can actually,
It's got an IRS lien, huh?
yeah,
So with an IRS lien, that is a government lien, that we would want to watch out for. But ultimately, the IRS would basically need to make a choice on it, whether they were going to take it or let it go.
you can click on the street view. Just it's not pulling up the number 8, but
Oh, that's kind of interesting here.
yeah, it's
So
actually. Let's click on Zillow. I was looking at this property earlier. It's pretty sweet.
if you can get any of these actually go through the foreclosure. Now, what may be happening too in some of these cases is that investors might be reaching out to them and working out deals, getting some kind of deal worked out with them to sell the property or to retain it.
But we are only a week from the auction, so that property, you can see it's even got. They were trying to sell it at one time, and so you can see, from even through that front view, you can see the ocean right through. I just think that's sweet.
Yeah, a great little condo there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is true. As we get closer to that auction date, they're more likely to end up actually going through the sale.
Yeah, there'll always be a couple that redeem on the last day, but usually as you're getting closer and closer, they're more and more likely to be on the auction list.
Okay, now let's see here. Now, Mary, you are in Texas, it sounds like, and you're wondering about if a bidder wins with 50,000 on taxes and fees of 15,000, what amount is the 25% paid on? And if the owner redeems, what happens to the extra 35? Okay, so if you pay for a property that redeems, you're going to get all of your money back, and I believe you make money on all of it.
Yeah. Essentially, you're gonna make 25% off whatever your total amount is. And if the property, doesn't redeem, then that extra 35 is gonna, go back to the county, which could eventually go back to the property owner. But it's more of a redemption deed strategy there in Texas than a tax deed strategy where they, it's like buying a tax deed. They bid it up like a tax deed. You have property ownership in some ways like a tax deed, meaning you can occupy the property, you could rent the property out, but there's still that redemption period attached to it. So, it's a little bit different than your normal tax deed foreclosure, but yeah, you're gonna make the 25% off the total, and usually, unless it's a homestead property, it's only gonna have a 6-month redemption period. So it's a pretty short redemption period for anything other than somebody who's qualified under the Homestead Act or the homestead exemption.
This one says it's worth about 100,000 here. Let's see what this one is. It opens up at 20, so yeah, it looks like this one's a house here in Watsonville. Does that look like it?
Yeah. It's got some pretty good value, if I remember. I think it was like 300.
539. That's crazy compared to the assessed value.
We've seen that
there.
in a couple of these in California before, where the assessed value, and it's probably because they're not doing the assessed value like the market value. They're doing the taxes differently there based off of it. And so that's the reason it's important to check into the market value and see where it's at.
Oh, and yes, by the way, Mary, the surplus will eventually go to the previous owner of the property, although it's going to go to pay off any claims or debtors, that are attached to the property, any judgments. So a lot of times what the owner ends up getting, it may not necessarily be very much. It could be, it all depends on how much it sells for at auction, but that's also what is known as the overage or the overbid. And there is an investment strategy based around helping basically connect owners with money that is owed to them and being able to make a percentage on it. And that's kind of what the overage strategy is based around.
Yeah.
You know,
And we looked at a couple there. If we wanted to, we could go look at Miami.
Yeah, let's take a look at this. So what you'll see here is that the tax foreclosed properties are sold alongside of the bank foreclosures in a lot of ways, but they're different, in that bank foreclosures are essentially still owned by the bank.
Yeah. Well, and here you can see, they have them a couple of months. I was looking at just that first one on the 5th, just kind of seeing what was left there on the list, and you can see that it's whittled down. But just even looking at some of these properties, and what we teach with our members is kind of a quick glance method, is we're going through this list where we're looking at that opening bid amount versus the assessed value, and then kind of deciding which properties we're going to look into.
Yeah. So we can see this one right here opens up at 25, valued at 262. It's probably a nice home here. We click on that link, which may tell us, so we can see it is a house here. You see the property address, which I think I've already got that recorded here.
Now, one thing we're talking about and showing here are online auctions, which are, everyone has the opportunity to invest into. Excuse me. But, there is still really a great opportunity for structured properties and live auctions. And there's a chance there's people here from all over the country that may have live auctions taking place within their area. And that could be, a very good opportunity within your own area to attend live auctions, because then we're not dealing with everybody, who wants to bid. You're only dealing with really the local investors in most cases.
Yeah, so we can see, this property listed here, they value at about 374. Yeah, whoops, wrong one here.
Over there on that far end.
There it goes, right there. Yeah, so a bit over there, over the 262 they've got it listed at though, but.
Well, and even look at that one on top. It only has an opening bid of 2,300 with a $71,000 value. That's probably was only 2 years worth of back taxes. So there's a chance that one could get paid. But if not, that's going to be, start at a low opening bid amount.
Well, and condos, if you're looking to buy tax sale properties, properties that have been foreclosed on, then one of the things that condos do is they don't quite, they're not quite as risky in terms of some of the issues that the properties can have as you will if it's a property home just by itself, because there's nobody forcing anything to happen. With the condo, it's part of a shared community, and so you've got a little bit more protection that way.
Yeah, well, the two most expensive things on the home can be what? The foundation and the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And so within a condo, we don't need to worry about those type of issues, where we're really just worrying about what it looks like inside, because we know what the outside looks like. And condo may be the one case that if we can get enough information on it and get some, current photos of at least what the building looks like and things like that, we may not send somebody out there, because all they're going to be able to do is take a picture of the door.
Yeah, that's interesting. Brian's saying that the assessed value in California is set the last sales price due to Prop 13.
Oh.
That's interesting. One of those things, I don't really find out, and unless you're investing in an area like that.
One thing even about real estate and the tax sale investing in general is me and Shade are always learning new things, and we've been doing this our entire adult lives.
Yeah. In terms of what crime score do you consider as high, and how do you find it? I don't think we really look for any kind of a crime score specifically, because it's really more about the opportunities that we can find. When we're looking at whether or not we want to invest in a neighborhood, though, that's usually based on what the other properties look like.
Yeah. I mean, even if it was, say, what we would consider a higher crime area, but the homes all, were lived in.
Yeah, if we can get it for 10 cents on the dollar.
And they're all lived in, and their value, and you could cash sell it to somebody. We're gonna be willing to look at that. Shade makes a good point. What we're really most concerned about is those areas where the entire neighborhood is trashed. And in those cases, there's nothing, it doesn't matter how cheap you can get it. We can probably go show you tonight homes you could buy for $100. But that doesn't mean you want to buy it, because these homes are going to need so much work, and they're in the type of area or have low enough value that it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. In fact, it's not going to make sense in a lot of cases. You'll find homes.
There really is a lot of good homes on this. I mean, a lot of good property. 1,144, 3,732.
Yeah.
1,425.
And then occasionally you come across one that looks where the numbers are kind of upside down, and you can see had a low assessed value but a high opening bid. Even then, that could still potentially be a deal. You have to look and see what it is.
Well, and you know what, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a property that was a condemned property that's been, I mean, it had to have had a lot more value at one point to have that much property taxes, because they can only do 7 years, otherwise it's going to drop off.
Yeah.
So it had to have a high value.
Let's see what it is. Let's click on it here and find out. So it is a vacant lot, I do believe, vacant residential. I wonder if it used to have a house on it.
It'd be interesting to see if you look back at some of the GSI maps where, look at the past values. At least we can see what the values were, and maybe that'll give us some. Does it have like a history value, like,
Oh yeah, you can see right there. In 2017 it was valued higher. There it has the building value right there.
Yeah.
So it used to have a house on it. That's why we're probably looking at the added cost to to tear it down.
Yeah, well, even that, let's say it had 7 years worth of property taxes and it was a higher value, maybe the assessed value was 150, or 200,000. Well, then, because it is in Miami, then the property taxes could have been, 2,000, if it was assessed value to 2,000, the property taxes could have been 2,500 or $3,000 a year. And they've been sitting for year after year. And it was also probably kind of right there at the tip of the market.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just kind of clicking on random ones here because I think it's kind of interesting. This one's actually another condo.
Yeah.
And this one's like a low dollar. I mean, it starts at $1,500. They have it assessed at 25.
Let's see what the market is on
that. I'll bet that it's 50.
Or at least what Zillow says it is.
Yeah, let's see what they estimate it at here. $106,000, this one's just a 1-bedroom too. This was sold.
Interesting is they sold, but I wonder if it really did end up going through because they couldn't have sold it without the taxes being done.
Yeah, well, it could be a different unit. I mean, with the condo.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm not sure which unit number this one is that we're looking at here.
We could see if it was the same size though, and it could be very similar.
Yeah. It very well. This very well could be the same listing.
Yeah.
This could be that same property. Maybe they tried to get this deal to go through, and maybe it didn't actually go for 105,000. So they didn't actually pay it off because the taxes never got paid off.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of an interesting one to look at. Where it starts off fairly low, but there's, it's worth $100,000. And so it's starting off at about 1.5% of its value. That's really good numbers when you're looking at, bid to values just for stuff, that you could begin to bid on, because it means that there's a lot of room to bid it up and still have it be profitable.
Let's look at that vacant lot just to kind of curiosity, for 2,700, see if it has any value at all. Or have any. No,
this one's a junk strip.
And that's the thing. It just takes a little bit of common sense, and you can see what looks like it could be a possibility and what looks like it's junk.
Yeah.
Now, that could be a possibility.
Yeah, it looks like it might be a full-size lot.
Yeah.
And so if it is here a full-size lot,
it's only 5,200 square feet. So what we'd probably do is actually call the city to make sure that it qualifies, which I think it would, because it looks like about probably the same size as the other one. They're probably just smaller homes on them. But that would be something we'd probably check before buying it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, there are, there's actually a number of different sales there that are happening. Bid for Assets has several sales, that are happening. Um, there's also a bunch of condos. We could look at really quickly here before we let everybody go. We can show. So this is in Palm Beach. They've used a different service here. So we can see all the standard bank foreclosures that are listed, but then we can see there's the tax deeds right here. The main difference with the tax deeds is that the party that's selling them doesn't have, aside from the opening bid amount, it doesn't matter to them how much it sells for. And you just won't find that with bank foreclosures. So here it looks like they advertised 77 so far. They've canceled out 23 of them, so there's still 54 left. And what we find here is there are a whole bunch of condos in this area. And so we can see this is a Century Village condo. This is another Century Village condo here. 10,000.
Yeah, well,
Another one.
and what's nice is this gives you 3 different examples of online auction systems that are selling tax deeds. We did one of these free workshops a few months ago on online auctions, and we went over, Bid for Assets, which was the first company, and then a real auction, and now this one here is Grant Street Group. So there's a lot of different providers out there, and all of their systems are going to be a little bit different, but they're going to be the same in a lot of ways as well.
Yeah. Now let's see here. Yeah, looking at this property, it's also nice with how fast we can do a lot of this. Part of what we're trying to do here is find the right types of properties and the right sales without spending too much time doing so, without getting caught up in the process here. So it's taken a lot of trial and error over time to where we can find deals faster.
Yeah, in fact, that kind of reminds me to bring up the point that usually what Shade and I do, and what we have our coaching students, our members do, is wait until as soon as the auction before we spend a lot of time doing due diligence. And we had to learn this the hard way. When me and Shade first got started, I remember we went and visited every single property that was for sale. This was a local auction. There was like 150 properties, 45 days before the auction was 45 days as soon as the list came out. And we had to learn the hard way that, we spent hours and hours of researching properties that we didn't even have a chance to bid on. And so whether we're sending somebody out to view the property, we're viewing it ourselves, we're doing our due diligence as far as researching for liens or something like that, even the market value, we're going to wait until within a week of the auction before we're going to start spending a lot of time doing some serious due diligence.
That lot right there, I think is a mobile home lot. I think it's a lot that you could put a mobile home on.
Yeah, 0.15.
Yeah, it's kind of already set up there for it.
See, it's going up in value too, and that's because anywhere you can put mobile homes, that just
It's
they're
very usable.
going up. Yeah, they're very, very in need and in want right now.
Yeah, really a broad range of property types that you'll find in these lists, and so we'll see exactly what ends up going through to the actual auction. But even just the raw land, the vacant land, is attractive as well. Now this one, it looks like it's vacant land. Oh, it is just land.
Yeah,
okay. It's zoned for residential use, but
it's multifamily.
Yeah, it's zoned for multifamily. And so really the value on it there, you can see it's pretty good. That's a big jump up.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the area's, Miami's going up in value.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Palm Beach. Palm Beach is going up in value as well.
Yeah. Now, here's more of these condos. We can see you've got this Forest Hill Gardens area, and I think there's several of those too. So we've got in this building, so you can have a choice here. We've got the building 6086 unit 103 and 6086 unit 110.
Man, you get a couple of them back to back.
And then you've got 6086 unit 207 too right there. And then you've got this one right here. That's in a different building, 6120 unit 203.
Now, the one thing you would want to check is make sure that these condos are currently being lived in, you know,
Yeah.
that they're good quality units. But yeah, that could be an opportunity to own several properties in one spot.
You know, this one's another condo here, and we've got another. I don't remember what this one is. Oh, this one's a junk
land.
Yeah, piece of junk property there. You see, you don't want to buy a road.
Yeah, that's actually a good example of an easement, because there's probably power lines or something going. It looks like there's a power unit right next to it,
and a road
or a sidewalk or something. Yeah, a road.
You know, it's like it is a road, so you could probably, you know, figure that out there if you read the deed on it. You know, we could do that if we really want to dig into it, but we can pretty well look at it and just know that already, though.
Yeah. Well, look, somebody bought it as a tax deed back in 2005.
Yeah.
That means that they paid property taxes on, well, I guess it could have went to the, you know, because they could have just got a bunch of liens on it, but they had to have paid for a little while.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up, should we show you the website real quick, and just so you're kind of familiar with the website? And if you're interested in becoming a member, you know, here we have all of the online auctions. You know, we have our over-the-counter database, the auction calendar. You know, we just really have a lot of opportunity, a lot of training and information on tax sale support. You could spend literally hundreds of hours, because we even have hundreds of hours worth of, well, probably over 100 hours worth of training, if not more.
Yeah, well, and it is a way it will save you quite a bit of time if you're looking to just find, you want auction lists, you want to be able to navigate stuff. You know, we use it for the same thing, you know, to find lists faster because they're already listed here. And so we can always find wherever we're looking for here.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the most pretty website in the world, but it is functional and it does have a lot of information, and it's pretty easy to use.
Yeah, a lot of really good tax sale opportunities that are coming up here.
Yeah. So if you're interested, you can just go to the in the service section, the services underneath membership. You can go ahead and register. That will go ahead and get you set up with your username and password, and you can sign up month to month and cancel at any time. We offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, or if you'd like to save some money, you can go ahead and do a membership year up front, and then it's only $29.
You know, and by the way, you know, is it okay to send a contractor to see the property and get a rehab quote? You know, you can send a contractor if you work with somebody closely. But again, that's probably more time than you want to invest into the property, unless you are, you know, I mean, unless you were for sure going to buy it. I guess, I don't know. You know, that's kind of a lot of work.
Well, the problem is that the contractor, until you own it, the contractor can only see the outside of the property, you know, they can't go into the property and see really what it needs. And so that's part of the reason why we talked about a handyman, because at least they could kind of see some of those, you know, things that it's needed. But until we get it, until we own it, we can't do anything. So the contractor could look at the outside, which you could send the photos to a contractor and get his evaluation just as easy as him driving out there. You know, I don't know how motivated the contractor is to drive out and look at properties that you don't own yet.
Yeah. So another question here is, so you register and send deposit checks to all these sites before you bid? Yeah. You know, so yes, you could have a deposit with multiple different online auction providers, because ultimately that money's never, you know, it's never gone. It's never, you know, you could always get it back. You can always, you know, get the county to cut you a check back if you don't want to use it. But at the same time, it's kind of nice having it in there so that you can participate in auctions.
Yeah. And with online auctions, they're going to require a deposit because, you know, it just makes a lot more sense. You know, people could bid and they'll have too many people that bid without actually having any way to pay for the properties.
And yeah, so yeah, if you don't spend it though, you know, if you don't, then you'll get it all back.
Yeah, it's just kind of one of the hassles of doing tax sale investing, where you know your funds may be tied up for a couple of weeks to a month. You know, sometimes it's quicker than that, just depending if you know you didn't win any property and need that deposit back. Otherwise, that deposit will go towards the purchase price of the properties, and then you'll pay the remaining balance on them.
No, vacant property isn't the only thing that we're interested in, although it is what we normally have like our coaching students start with, because it simplifies things. But we're pretty much interested in uh, all types of properties.
Yeah, the reason we take our coaching students through doing some vacant land in the beginning is just because of how simple it is, and to kind of take them through the process of doing a successful deal. And so, there's certain types of pieces of property out there, like if we could purchase a land for 10 cents on the dollar and turn around and wholesale it for 50 or 60 cents on the dollar, then we've taken somebody through that process, and then adding on the extra training or knowledge that you're going to need to do the rehab. You've already understand the tax sale, so now it's just understanding what do I need with the contractor, what's the rehab's going to cost, and kind of that process.
Gretchen's got a great question. She says, you mentioned mobile homes. Have you or some of your students had good luck with
awesome.
them? Yeah, mobile homes and even just mobile home lots are awesome. They move really easy. And they're easy to sell and to be profitable with.
Yeah, in fact, we'll have lots that aren't available for mobile homes, but maybe there's some mobile homes within the area, and we'll get 10 calls on those before we're able to sell it with somebody who's willing to buy it right then and then if it was zoned for mobile homes. And so, like Shade said, lots, mobile homes themselves, mobile homes with land. And when we're talking about mobile homes, we're talking about mobile homes with their own piece of land.
Yeah. Now another really good question here from Mary is, why are useless parcels like easements carried on tax lien and deed rolls? This is a great question, and it really kind of falls to the way that the property tax system works. When the county assessor is giving out assessed values to property there within the county, they end up giving a value to every single piece of property that's privately owned. And because they do that, they basically need to use all of the property values to determine how much they're going to estimate and determine property taxes to be. But what happens here is the problem with that is that they end up assigning values to properties regardless of whether or not that property has real world value.
Yeah, it's part of the reason they go to the tax sale. In fact, they'll go to the tax sale over and over again, or just sit on the county books eventually after that happens. But they probably, for whatever reason, whether it was at one point it was privately owned, so maybe that person had like a larger piece of property and they kind of zoned this little thing off and it was still in their name. They quit paying property taxes on it because it doesn't have any real value. And so it ends up going back to it. Another example could be something like a drainage ditch. When the contractor built the subdivision, they included this drainage basin, and that was part of it. And they paid the property taxes. And after so many years, I'm not going to quit paying the property taxes on that thing. I don't care.
Maybe they feel like it's overvalued, and for something that doesn't have any real world use.
Yeah, and suddenly they're paying huge property taxes. Let's just let it go back. The county can't do anything with it. We'll just let it sit on the books.
Yeah, and if it's the wrong kind of property, they may be able to say, well, who else is going to buy it?
Yeah.
Because it may not have any use to anybody else but them, and it's kind of a junk or leftover piece of property anyway. So, they do end up recycling properties again and again, and a lot of counties are sitting on a ton of inventory too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the great thing about tax sale investing is there's always new inventory. You're never going to run out of inventory because there's always something new going on. And if you're willing to be flexible, in where you invest, if you're willing to look outside your own areas, and if your own area is great, then you can have a heyday within your own area. But we had to look outside of our own area from the very beginning because we were kind of interested in learning about liens. So you can't invest liens here in Utah, and the tax sales in Utah are pretty limited amount of property, and they're pretty competitive considering. It's still going to be the cheapest way, but there's not a whole lot of property, and it's one time a year. So we have one time a year to purchase maybe a handful of properties that are worth buying. And so in doing that, and not only that, it's going to be a more competitive, more expensive area. So, if we're going to go spend $100,000 on a tax deed here on maybe a $250,000 home, why not take that $100,000 and put it into and attend the auction in Kansas City and put it into 4 or 5 homes that we're renting out for $800 or $1,000 a month, that we're rehabbing and turn around and selling for big profit.
Yeah. By the way, we do have some overage lists on the website, although it's not really something that we specialize in. So we try to grab those lists whenever we see them and include them here, but it's not really our primary focus.
No, in fact, we're actually looking for somebody that we can train, that can help train our membership on them. It's really not something that Shade and I have done. We understand how it works, but we've always just been more focused on the lean and deep buying side of it.
Yeah. So yeah. Hey, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. If you have any more questions, you are welcome to email us, and we can answer those for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll go ahead and we've recorded this, and so we'll be listing it and putting it up available on YouTube.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, have a great night, and yeah, we'll hope to see everybody soon.
Yep, thank you.